have you here. All right, great. So we'll just get going here. And if people want to comment and ask further questions or anything like that, please feel free to. And otherwise, people have sent in some questions, which is very great. Thank you very much for the people that did that. And we'll just start here from the top. This question is from Crystal. She says, I have come off nearly all of my supplements. What are the chances of coming off my HRT now that I'm carnivore? So that depends. That depends on how old you are and what you need it for and how you're feeling. If you like, your hormones will balance better and they will and you will feel better hormonally. We all age, and at a certain point, our bodies aren't going to be making the same amount of hormones as they were before. And sometimes that's a problem for people, and other times it's not. There's a very good chance that you would actually feel perfectly well and perfectly fine off HRT on a carnivore diet. So you can try all that. I mean, your hormones will certainly change, and you can just see how you feel. Whenever someone comes in and they're talking about HRT, and they always ask me that. I always sort of just say, like, maybe try carnivore for like 3 months first and see how you feel and see how it makes you feel and see if you even need it or want it after that, because you may not. And a lot of people feel really, really good, and you check their hormones and they're actually all fine. So something to think about anyway, that you may just feel just fine without them. But that's something that only you can decide. If you feel that you improve going on bioidentical hormones to a physiological level that you would have seen earlier in life, and that makes you feel better and gives you benefits in certain ways, then that's something that you can certainly consider. But I think that everyone should at least try carnivore for a few months and then just see for themselves. So that's something that you can test out. And hello, carnivore veteran. Hello in Idaho. Question is from, well, actually, and just to go back to the HRT thing, I've actually seen people, in their 50s and even 60s, like, actually just go back to plumb normal hormonal panel, men and women. And well, I mean, you're not necessarily going to reverse out of menopause in your 60s, but women in their 50s have. So that's also something to be aware of. Dr. Berry talks about how when he was just getting people onto a ketogenic diet, that women in their 50s, like mid 50s, hadn't had their menstrual cycle in 5 years. All of a sudden they were coming back to him pregnant, and they're like, what the hell did you do to me? And that's because they were just getting so healthy and their hormones were correcting themselves to such a degree just by getting rid of carbohydrates, which is a big one for women. Carbohydrates really mess up with your hormones because it blocks the conversion of testosterone to estrogen. And so you'll have too much testosterone, not enough estrogen. And so you're just getting rid of the carbohydrates just does wonders for that. And all of a sudden these women are getting pregnant. So that shows you how much of a change this can make, and how much it can fix any hormonal issues, and you may not even need HRT. People in their 20s and 30s are taking hormonal fertility medications because they're not able to conceive, and now you go just keto, not even full carnivore, and women in their 50s who haven't had a menstrual cycle in 5 years are now getting pregnant, accidentally. So that just shows you how significant this plays in your how significant a role this plays. So, all right. Next question is from Melissa. I have hemochromatosis, but not problematic, and I've treated it with maintenance blood donations to keep it in a healthy range since I was in my 20s, every 2 to 3 months. No additional treatments have been needed. Are there any special recommendations or things to avoid, like organ meat, which I don't eat, or red meat? I've mostly eaten beef, venison, pork, and butter for the last year. No, I don't think there's anything that you need to avoid per se. I mean, people can have genetic conditions and other sorts of issues that they have to deal with, but I don't think that would make you. I don't think that would make you any worse. And what's what's the sort of the worst thing that can happen? You have to donate blood maybe a little more often if it were the case that it's going to spike up your iron levels and your hemoglobin levels, which I'm not actually convinced that it will, because there's with hemochromatosis you're sequestering um, iron to such a degree that you're building up your blood levels to higher than normal levels, quite high in some cases if you don't give blood donations. But there's a process going on there. It may be that that's just one to one, and you just iron comes in, it just doesn't go out, and without bloodletting, but not necessarily. So that's something that I've been curious about seeing, is if going carnivore and getting into a normal biochemical pattern and nutritional habits will actually change that around. So worst case scenario, you just keep doing what you're doing, maybe a little more frequently, but you get 1,000 other benefits on top of it all. Um, and actually, I would be interested to see if you actually needed to do it less. You know, so maybe let us know how you do. But I definitely wouldn't avoid red meat. Eat organ meat if you want to. You don't have to. So the same sort of thing would apply. I wouldn't do anything differently. You have a different genetic condition, but you're still a human, and the proper human diet is meat, and especially red meat, fatty red meat. So I would just keep doing that, and then please let me know how that goes, and if you find that there's a difference in your hemochromatosis, because I'd be very interested in that. Right. And do feel free to ask questions in the chat box, guys. There's always happy to take live questions. From Leandro, I am a clinical nutritionist and have a patient on carnivore to solve issues of ulcerative colitis and long-term antibiotic use for recurrent bacterial issues. His liver markers went from normal to quite high in the last 6 months. The last one was trending lower. Also, while on a strict carnivore diet, he kept losing weight. He needs to gain weight. What should I look for? As far as the liver markers are concerned, sometimes you get a bit of an aberrant jump. You generally don't see that if you're really eliminating out everything else. Um, so I don't know exactly why it's happening in this gentleman's case, or this person, yeah, his liver, yeah, in this gentleman's case. But like you say, it's sort of trending down. So I would expect that. I would just keep an eye on that, and just make sure that there's nothing else going on, no medications or anything else that could be sort of doing something to his liver, and then just keep an eye on it, and just see how that trends. And if he's not symptomatic and it's trending down, then I wouldn't worry too much about that. And then the losing weight thing, he needs to gain weight. It depends on what sort of weight he's losing. I mean, sometimes your body does lose a bit of water weight, and but after several months, that's it's not going to have any more water weight, unless unreasonable amount. So the main thing is just making sure he gets enough food. He's eating enough food, because that's very important. It's very easy to undereat on a carnivore diet, and so that's something you have to be mindful of. So just make sure that he's eating to satiation, because that's the thing. Everyone says that, well, I'm just not hungry, so I'm supposed to eat when I'm hungry, but I'm not hungry. But they don't actually realize they're hungry, because your hunger signals change dramatically. And so if he's just saying, oh, well, I'm just not hungry. Like my dad said, this is like, I haven't felt hungry in the last year. And I was just like, right. But, that's because you're not, experiencing hunger in the same way. And so you have to relearn your hunger signals. So, if meat tastes good, that means you're hungry. If you're a little bit tired or not really feeling tip top, then, you might be hungry. So ask yourself that, and then go and eat something, and try eating meat or eggs, and see if that helps. Or see if that tastes good, really is what you should do. So if it tastes good, that means that you're hungry. Your body's giving you a positive feedback to say, hey, get more of that in you. I like that, right? And so you just eat to taste, and then you sort of get to the point where you just go, oh, that it doesn't really taste interesting anymore, and you can just stop. If someone's working out a lot, or for other reasons, it may be that he needs to eat more than once a day. Or if he's eating more lean meat and he's not getting very high fat meat, then you have to You will just have to eat more pounds of meat, and you may not be able to fit it all in at one time. So you may have to, have more meals during the day. So think about that, and just try to make sure that he's eating to satiation. Make sure he's eating until meat doesn't taste good, and to try eating more than once a day if that's the case. Especially with athletes. I talk to, they're like, "Well, I'm losing weight. I can't lose weight. I've got to maintain my weight." And it's just like, right, well, first 2 weeks you're going to lose weight because it's just going to be water weight and glycogen. You want that crap out of your system anyway. That's not good weight. And then you'll start putting on lean muscle mass. But if you're still sort of losing weight, that means you're not eating enough. Okay, so you need to eat more. And I was talking to Ryan Talbot, who's All American decathlete, who went carnivore, and I had on my podcast. And so I was helping him sort of early on. Like the reason I met him was he contacted me and just said that he was interested in my videos, and he was trying carnivore because of that. And he was feeling really good, but I was helping him sort of through these things, and that was one of the things. He was losing a lot of weight because the dude was just training crazy amounts during the day, right? Because he's a D1 decathlete. And so, I just said, look, you just need to eat. You need to eat more, and that was it. He just wasn't really as conscious of his hunger signals, and he was starting to eat like more than once a day, and because he had to, because he's just like, I only eat once a day normally. If I start working out a lot, I have to eat twice a day. I'm not going to get in enough, and when I do, I stack on muscle very easily, but I have to be able to get it in. And it's difficult during the day because I don't like eating a big meal during the day because it makes me lethargic and sort of tired, which is normal. It puts you into rest and digest as opposed to, hunt and kill sort of metabolism. And so I find that eating like sort of like a half meal is just sort of, I'm still sort of, it sort of takes the edge off, but I'm not just stuffed. Then that makes me feel better. I have better energy during the day, and then I can have a bigger meal at night. So just some things to think about. But definitely sounds like he's not eating enough if it's been 6 months and he's still losing weight. Obviously, if he's got extra fat to lose, then that's good. That's not a problem that he's losing weight. But if he's slim and he's losing weight, then that's definitely because he's not eating enough. So definitely do that. So Ellie asks, what is just in the chats, what is the physiology of weight gain and the use of heavy cream? She says, I have asked and been told there are carbs in it, and that's why. Is it in the coffee or the cream? Probably, well, coffee is going to cause some inflammation and some water retention, but depending on how much you drink, maybe not all that much. But also, caffeine's a bit of a suppressant, like a appetite suppressant, and also like dehydrates you as well. So there's a lot of crap going on there. But with the heavy cream, there aren't really many carbs in heavy cream, if any. But it is something that some people tend to see. It may be an inflammatory sort of thing. I don't think it's just a calories thing, because your body can only absorb a certain amount of fat, and then there's just a spillover. Your body's not going to absorb any more. And so I don't think that you're going to be overeating fat. So I think there's something else going on. To be perfectly honest, I don't know exactly, but it is something that some people see. I don't have that same issue. I don't really use heavy cream all that much, but if I were to sort of put it in something, I don't really notice too much of a difference. But there must be something going on there with the types of proteins that are in the dairy. And that's the thing too, is that you do see people when they sort of add in dairy, they will put on weight, and it could be a number of different reasons. Could be something being triggered by the inflammatory proteins that are in dairy, which some people have problems with. But also, you're not getting complete nutrition from the dairy. You're getting some things that you want, but you're not getting everything. And so, maybe that your body's asking for more nutrients, and it just wants actual nutrients that are in the meat. So it's saying, okay, so you end up eating and that's what I noticed too. A lot of people, when they sort of add in dairy, they end up eating the dairy and the exact same amount of meat. that they would have eaten otherwise. So you're just sort of adding in, sort of more than your body necessarily wants. But I don't think it's that really to do with the fat, because your body can only absorb a certain amount of fat. And so, there's something else going on there. But yeah, it's a weird one that people have with that. But I have noticed that sometimes when people add in dairy, especially when they're doing regular dairy and eat a lot of dairy, they'll put on some weight. And and when if I was like were to drink milk or something like that, and I go from being very, very lean to getting a bit fluffy, and be like, oh, I don't like that. All right, just go back to meat. So Ellie says she has had it. She doesn't drink it anymore. She gained 13 pounds in 10 days. Okay, so that's going to be more of an inflammatory response, and with water weight. So that's probably what's going on there. So that's more likely to do with the proteins. If you're slamming on 13 pounds in 10 days, that's going to be most likely to do with inflammation and water weight, which is, a liter of water weighs a kilo, so if you're just retaining, a few extra liters, that's, a few kilos, so it adds up really quick anyway. So that's more likely what's happening there. From Maria, she just wanted to get my thoughts on fermented foods. Is it necessary to introduce them, e.g., sauerkraut, yogurt, sour cream? And if so, handmade only, not the store-bought type? No, it's not necessary to introduce them. You don't have to do that. And I wouldn't do sauerkraut. Like the fermented vegetables, fermented milk products, makes it better. Fermenting plants can be a way of reducing the toxicity and bringing out more of the nutrients and the nutrition, and that's fine if you're in a position where you are relying on plants to survive. But if you don't have to, and if you're able to access and afford meat, then just eat meat. Yogurt, sour cream, should only be used really as a condiment, and sparingly, because again, it's not complete nutrition. It's not as perfect as meat. And so if you wanted a bit just for flavor, mix some yogurt or sour cream in with some ground beef, melt some cheese on meat, fine, or eggs or whatever, fine, if that's what you enjoy. I would be careful. I mean, obviously, if you make it yourself, you're always going to be, if you know how to make it. Obviously, you can mess that up and get problems with that. But if you know how to make it, that's always better, because you know exactly what's going into it. You're not adding in a bunch of artificial ingredients or plants or sugar or whatever, and you're going to limit what's coming in. If you're going to get store-bought stuff, or like the sour cream or the yogurt, just look at the ingredients. If it has more than just milk and cultures, don't buy it. And the sauerkraut, I would just leave that off completely. Okay. And from Serena, many of us like to exercise on an empty stomach or fasting. What does Anthony think of a tablespoon of butter before exercise for energy on the carnivore diet, and does it break a fast? I use my bulletproof water and don't consider my overnight fast to be broken from it. If you like that and that's giving you energy and you feel better on it, go for it. I like just not having anything besides water in my system when I'm working out, especially when I'm playing like a game, or even when I'm doing like a presentation or at work. Like I'm much more focused and sharp if I just have an empty stomach. And it's not about being in a fasting metabolism, so-called fasting metabolism, or a fed metabolism. It's about not having blood diverted to my intestines, and having that my metabolism is just like, hey, you need to go get a kill, you need to go do something, here's energy, go get it. Whereas you eat something, you get calories and get nutrition, your body goes, right, take it easy, conserve now, and you go into a rest and digest mode. If you want to do some bulletproof water and you find that helps with your workouts and you feel good, then that's great. I don't like anything personally. I just like just being completely empty stomach and hungry. I always told people, like, I always to play hungry. And when I would give advice to people, like new players coming through or other people, they would ask me about things that, they'd ask me, "Oh, well, why aren't you eating? What do you eat before a game?" I was like, never, never eat before a game. Always play hungry. You want that edge, that killer instinct. I mean, like I need to go, get this done. And like, so I've noticed that too. Like even at KetoCon, for instance, I was presenting in the afternoon, for my big presentation, and I was like, I didn't eat the whole day because I was like, I'm doing this the same as if it was game day. This is I have competition. Let's go kill this thing, and that's how I approached it. So I did it in the same way, and I felt much better for that. Then after that, I was like, okay, that was a relief. Did that. It went well, and so I was a bit happier and a bit more relaxed about it. And so then. On the Saturday, there was the carnivore panel that I was on, and I just was, and then I was like going around the convention, and like there was like steaks and snacks and all these sorts of different things, like just the meat ones. I didn't go in for any of the ones with all the artificial sort of stuff or the keto stuff. I just stuck with just straight up meat. But I ate breakfast and things like that. And I really regretted it. Like, I got up on the stage and I was just like, I wasn't in the same mindset. I didn't have that, that edge that, that I like to have when I'm doing anything, uh, like competing or, presenting or even doing surgery. Like I like to just have that sharp edge on me where I'm hyper focused, and that's how I feel better. So, but if you want to have a bit of the bulletproof coffee with the butter in it, and that makes you feel better, go for it. Just see how you go. Um, there's another question, sort of ties in with some of the stuff we were talking about uh, previously about sort of weight loss and diet and hunger and things like that. What are the specific conditions under which you'd suggest priming? How would someone know they should use it? And do you need to do fasting alongside it? So this was a question that Simon had in our last How to Carnivore thing. He wanted to talk about priming. This was something that he had learned about from like Bella, Steak and Butter Gang, and so he was interested in that because several people that were in our How to Carnivore 30-day challenge had been mentioning it and saying that it had actually really helped them sort of get on track and like really figure out what their body wanted and how much they needed to eat. It's not something that I necessarily do, so I don't know too much about it. And I think that people will use this in different ways, and I believe that that like in Bella's group, they will suggest this to people that are just starting to sort of gauge how much they need to eat, and I think they also do it if they're going to set up like a fast or something like that. I obviously don't think you need to fast. I think that you get I think you get all the benefits of fasting is just from not eating all that other stuff, and so there might be a benefit of just not physically not eating for a number of days versus eating carnivore, but there aren't really any studies to show that. And a lot of the studies that look at just a fasting mimicking diet, which is just keto versus fasting, they actually show very similar results. And actually, sometimes the keto diet actually has better outcomes than just fasting alone. So that's something what I think about. I even talked to Dr. John Jaquish about this, and he's a big proponent of fasting and dry fasting. And I asked him that. I was like, are there studies that look at like the difference between keto and or carnivore and fasting, and do they show a difference? He's like, yeah, we really don't have those studies. So I'd be interested in seeing that, but at the moment I don't think that there's any strong evidence to suggest that you need to fast more when you're already on a carnivore diet. I think that really the benefit comes from just not eating that garbage and getting into the metabolism we are supposed to be in all the time, which is called the fasting metabolism, which obviously I don't think that that's named correctly. I think that that's our primary metabolism. So the conditions under which you would suggest priming, I don't, I don't necessarily suggest priming. I think that I was asked, is this something that you could see a benefit from, and sort of put in that context, I could see that if people are first starting out, and like the gentleman before who's just losing a bunch of weight and doesn't necessarily realize that he's not eating enough because he doesn't know what hunger really feels like, that might having a regimented approach to eating, at least for the first sort of week or two, might help with that. But you could do that just as easily by what I suggested that guy did, which is try eating more than once a day, and if it tastes good, keep eating. The idea of prime, I certainly don't think that you need to force feed yourself anything. I certainly don't think that you have to eat 3 times a day if your just body's just telling you, "Gosh, that sounds like a terrible idea." No, I don't think you need to do that at all. I don't think that. Um, uh, Certainly, everyone doesn't need to do this. It's just a tool in the box that you can use to try and get down to an optimal way of eating for you. So if you're fine and you're getting good results and you're able to track your hunger signals and you're eating when you're hungry and things are tasting good and you're eating until they're not tasting good, then you're not someone that needs to do that. If you're someone that's losing weight and you don't know why and you're not trying to and you just don't feel hungry all the time and you're thinking like, okay, well maybe I'm not eating enough, you can just try eating more than once a day and eating until meat stops tasting interesting. And because you should never be eating, you should never be forcing meat. When your body's telling you like, good God, this doesn't taste good. If it doesn't taste good, that's your body giving you a negative feedback saying, don't eat this. We're done now. Stop it. So you shouldn't go against that. I don't think anyway. Maybe you're taking medications or sick or someone's, chemo or whatever, and their body's just telling them never to eat ever. Like that's a different situation. But normally, normal hunger signals when eating carnivore, that's your body telling you just to stop. We don't need it anymore. Um, but you can try that more than once a day. It doesn't necessarily have to be 3 times a day. And I don't think that, and if you start off and you sort of have a bite and your body just goes, no, I don't want it. Well, then that's it. You're done. You're full. Like it doesn't have to be any more than that. Um, I could see it giving a benefit to people in that situation if they're doing if they need a regimented approach to really structure out exactly how much their body wants, because it's difficult to tell sometimes. I really underate when I first did this 22 years ago, 23 years ago now. 20, yeah, probably still 22. And so and I drastically underate, and I just and then months into it, I'm like, I was losing a ton of weight, and I just started like getting to the point where I'm like I'm really like I probably need to eat more, but I'm like I'm just not hungry. And so if someone told me, hey, why don't you try eating multiple times a day and see if food tastes good, that would have changed my life. That would have revolutionized my entire being, and I probably would have stayed on it, the whole time. But um, it's not necessarily so it's not necessary to do. Not everyone needs to do it. So I think that it's a very individual, and it can be done in the same it's the same concept used that way is the same concept as just eating till you're full and trying to eat more than once a day if that's what your body and see if your body wants any more. If it doesn't, then don't eat. It's not a problem. And I notice that certainly when people are losing weight, losing fat tissue. And when I was, sometimes I didn't want to eat at all. Sometimes I was like, I got home after like working out for like 6 hours, or maybe even more, and it was like 11 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock, and I just thought like oh, I need to eat. I have to eat because I need the energy because I've worked out for 6 hours today. I'm going to work out for 6 hours tomorrow. Like I have to eat because I need this energy. Like somehow I would die otherwise. Not realizing throughout my own stupidity that like I had weeks of energy stored in my fat that I could have gone on without eating and without losing muscle mass. And so my whole body was telling me, don't eat, you don't need it, like just stop. But I was in that mindset, oh, I have to, but I have to. And so I tried sort of waiting, and took like 2 hours to cook this steak, like a reverse sear. I just took my time with it, watched a movie. And at the end of it, I was like, oh, well, okay, it doesn't sound as horrible now. And I went and started eating it, and I got like a quarter of the way through it. And I was just like, I am just not enjoying this. I really had to force myself. And I said, okay, I'm not going to eat this. It's just not enjoyable. And so I stopped. And, and that was my body telling me to stop. And, the next day, did my big work. I was working out all day, playing rugby, and then got home, and I felt great. I felt great doing it. And then I got home, and I put that steak in the fridge, and now it's cold and dry and hard. The fat is all like, like hard now, and it tasted amazing. It was just absolutely fantastic. And I was like, okay, that is significant. That's my body telling me, when it's warm, it's perfect. It's like I have really, really, cooked this thing well, and it tasted horrible, right? So that was my body saying, hey, look, fatty, you don't need to eat this stuff. Like, stop doing it. And so I had to get out of that mindset, and just realize that I could listen to my body. So I think that's the main thing is just listen to your body. Again, just keep it simple. If you're hungry, eat until you're not, but you may have to relearn that. And so I think that in that context, that priming or that idea of maybe eating more than once a day can be helpful, and just realizing that and recognizing that you may not understand what hungry feels like yet, and so you may have to sort of test and just sort of say, okay, I'll try eating more. But if you get to the point where you're like, ugh, I'm really not enjoying this, that's it. You're done. You're primed. You know, but you can give it a shot if you suspect that you're not really eating enough. Okay, so that's when I would suggest that. I'm not really you know, uh, the main proponent of priming. So it's not my thing. It's just something that I was asked about, and so I've thought about it in those contexts, and that's where I could see it benefiting people. So that's what I would say about that. Oh, do we have any other questions? Yeah. Okay. So Um, why? So, just some general questions. Why do we seem to need less sleep on carnivore? Well, because you're getting better quality sleep, and your hormones and your patterns are improved, and also you're going to have more energy during the day. Your body's going to be working better. So even if you didn't get enough sleep, you're going to feel better anyway because your body's just going to be working better and your energy levels are going to be better. But yet you will definitely get better quality sleep. I was a terrible sleeper, and it was very difficult for me to get to sleep. It was difficult to stay asleep. I was, restless, and I wouldn't get, even if I had a full night's sleep, I'd still wake up, feeling, not my best. And now that's the opposite. I feel fantastic, and even getting just like a few hours of sleep a night, even though that hurts my soul. If I have to do it, I have to do it, and I can function, and I can do fine. So there are limits still. Like if I'm sometimes I'll get like 2 hours of sleep one night and then no sleep the next night. And then I'm like in clinic or something like all the next day. And I'm just like, just very, very tired and not feeling great. But, most of the time it's manageable, but that's because you're getting better quality sleep, and your energy levels and your body is just working optimally during the day anyway. So even if you don't have enough sleep, you're still going to feel better than you would have otherwise, not eating carnivore. So I talked on my Zoom about celery powder in bacon and that nitrates are fine, but most bacon with nitrates also seem to have ascorbic acid. Is that okay? Well, yeah. I mean, look, as little additives as possible, is really the way to go. And so it's not that you want to go seeking out nitrates. It's just to point out that nitrates are in everything. And so, the reason they use celery powder as natural curing is because there's a ton of nitrates in it, and so say, oh, it's nitrate free, but it's a lie. They're saying, well, if it's a natural product, it just comes from celery. Well, then that doesn't count. Um, Not telling you that the reason they use celery powder is because there are more nitrates in it. You also make nitrates and nitrates like in your saliva at hundreds of times the quantity that you'll find in processed meats and bacon. So I really wouldn't worry about that. The ascorbic acid, that's just another additive that you don't necessarily need. Is it okay? Probably not going to kill you, but I like to keep things, as simple and as clean as possible. And so you know, bacon is awesome, but if I can't find bacon that doesn't have a bunch of additives and sugar and other things in it, then I generally go for pork belly, and then I salt that and put it on racks just the same way as I do my steaks, and it actually tastes really good. Or you can smoke them and make your own bacon, and that's probably the best thing to do, and it's also cheaper. Um, so yeah, I just as a rule of thumb, is I would just avoid as much additives to meat as possible. But ascorbic acid is probably not the end of the world. Um, but again, just as a rule of thumb, I just sort of avoid as much of that as possible. And any up and coming interviews you were looking forward to doing? Yes, absolutely. I'll be interviewing Nina Teicholz this Friday, actually, which I'm very excited about. Nina is awesome. And I'm really, really excited to speak to her and pick her brain. I mean, she literally wrote the book on all this. She wrote The Big Fat Surprise, and has been really at the forefront of this for a very long time, is showing the con that has been laid over people about fat being bad for us. It just isn't. It's just not bad for us. Fat makes the animal kingdom go round, and so it never made sense to me even as a kid. That Inuit would be literally eating blubber and just slim and healthy. And I was just like, well, isn't that going to give you heart disease? Isn't that going to kill them? And I remember thinking, I was like, okay, put a pin in this. You're a kid, you don't know too much, but remember this, because this seems important. And and just looking back, you're like, well, yeah, of course. That's what I say. Like, wisdom from the mouth of babes. It's because kids haven't been indoctrinated as adults have. So they haven't been told the shape of the world. They can actually just see what's there. And this is what the outside of the box thinking, right? The inside the box is everything that you're told. Like, well, this is this is what it is. Just learn what's in here, right? And so you think outside the box. You sort of assume, like, okay, maybe that's not the limit. Maybe that's not the edge of reality and human knowledge. Maybe there's actually more out here. Maybe I shouldn't stay confined in there. And then you start seeing things that other people don't. And kids do that naturally because they don't know the limits. They don't know what the box is. And so they just look at that and go like, well, that doesn't make sense. They eat blubber. Why are they not getting heart disease? Does that really cause heart disease? And in 8th grade biology, learned that every cell in your body is made out of cholesterol. And it was like, why? How is cholesterol bad for you if we're made out of cholesterol? Never made sense to me. And so I think that I may have been just primed and ready for this when it came out, and be like, yeah, no, it's actually not a problem. It's like, yeah, makes sense. Okay, and that wasn't as hard for me to sort of undo that learning and false education, because I was a bit skeptical of it anyway. So but Nina Teicholz has been really showing the evidence for that, and for that as an actual fraud, as opposed to like, oh shoot, we just got it wrong, sorry guys. It's like, no, this was deliberate fraud. So she is definitely an interview I'm looking forward to doing. And who else? I definitely have others that are coming up that I'm looking forward to doing as well, that I'm just drawing a blank on. I'm sorry. Zofria Clemens from Paleomedicina. That she's someone that I heard first on Dr. Baker's original podcast, Human Performance Outliers, with Zach Bitter. She came on sort of around the same time I was on their show. I think she was like in the 80s or something like that. Like my episode with them was like 34, and hers was like 82 or something like that, but in the 80s. And I was very impressed by that. And she'd been doing, at that point, she had already been using like a carnivore diet, or at least a keto diet, to treat cancer and autoimmune and other sorts of things for like 10 years, and that was in 2018. So that's really impressive, and so I'm very interested in talking to her. And she was also saying that they had like glioblastoma patients, these brain cancer patients, that she said that that's the only cancer that they don't see that just really regresses very well on a carnivore diet. That one, but it stays stable, it doesn't grow. And you know what? If you can make a GBM stand still, you've won. Like that's I'll take that as a win, because those things are extremely aggressive. And so if you can get that to just sit down and take a nap, fine. Like, happy with that. So I definitely wanted to should pick her brain on that. And now there's another 5 years of data and experience that she has on that. And so I definitely interested in that. Um, so Ellie asks, how do you know if you are eating enough? How much protein should I aim for? She's 5'8", and no, it's fine. Ellie's saying, I'm sorry, I'm chatty. This is my first one. No, I want you to be chatty. Please do ask questions. That's the purpose of these lives, is so people can ask questions. And it's nice when people, submit questions, obviously, because I have something to start with. But otherwise, I just go off what you guys are saying in the chats, and so that's very helpful. So please don't feel shy about that. How much protein should you be eating? As much as your body is asking for, as much as tastes good. If you're eating a lot of lean meat, and eventually it'll just stop tasting. It'll just start tasting boring. Like, you may think about how, like chicken breast. It's not too interesting. Chicken thigh. Like, oh, okay, now you've piqued my interest. But even lean steak, it tastes good for a bit, and then it's just like, yeah, I think I'm over that. But then you start adding some fat in, and you're like, oh, well, hello. So you want the fat, but your body will tell you. So just go by taste as well. I don't shoot for any specific number. I just eat until I'm full. I just eat until my body says, yeah, that's enough. And for me, I eat like 2 pounds, so like a kilo or so of meat that's fatty. And and when I'm working out a lot, I'm literally double that. So, if I'm doing that, like I'm getting, hundreds of grams of protein, even though most of my calories are coming from the fat. You'll get a ton of protein. Don't worry about that. As long as you're giving your body what it wants. And so you eat to satiation, you eat until meat stops tasting interesting, and you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to count macros, you don't have to count calories, you don't have to count protein. Unless like Serena has pointed out before, sometimes people if you're not eating enough and you sort of count your calories and go like, wow, I'm really not eating a lot. um I was doing that. I remember looking at, I'm like, I'm getting less than, when I eat, I get like less than 400 calories a day. And then I'll have like a big meal, like a couple times a week, maybe. But like most days, I really wasn't eating at all. And so that was bad. And it cost me, eventually I got to the point where I was just like, I was actually feeling worse when I was working out, where normally like every time it was better and better and better and better. And I really liked that feeling. And then all of a sudden, I was just like, it was actually taking me down a peg. I was like, that's not right. And I just was looking at it, I was like, yeah, I'm not eating though, and that's probably the problem. Um, so but at the same time, like I said, when I was losing extra fat this last time around, there were days that I was just like, the thought of eating meat or anything else just sounded abhorrent, and so that can be a thing as well. But as long as you're at least trying, just try something, that should be fine. So if you're getting if you're taking in small amount of calories, and you're like, oh, maybe I should have more than this, you still shouldn't go past what tastes good. But you should ask yourself, am I eating enough? Am I eating until it tastes good? you know am I trying to eat more than once a day just to see? you know and you might be surprised. With the answer on that one. So that's something you can do. But otherwise, just listen to your body. um and Olivia asks, can you ask Nina how she can get more support from communities to change dietary guidelines? That's a good question. I'll write that down. uh, get support. to change guidelines. Yeah, the guidelines are a bit of a pain because those are bureaucracies. Those aren't doctors and scientists actually making those guidelines at all. They will pick, a panel of people that they'll say, hey, can you guys give us some recommendations based on the literature and the science available, or the scientific literature available, I should say. And and then they submit all these sorts of things, and then a bureaucracy goes in and votes on it and just says, yeah, this is what we'll do, and it may be completely different to any of the recommendations. And so that's it. That's what people should understand, is that these guidelines are written by bureaucrats and politicians, not doctors and scientists. So it's not even a case that it's just like a doctor or scientist did their best and they got it wrong. It's like it didn't even come from them in the first place. So this is not representative of the literature. And then oh yeah, and then Livy reminds me that I'll be interviewing Paul Mason. Very excited about that as well. All three of those interviews are going to be are three people that I've really really admired and been interested in talking to, and Paul Mason is certainly one of those guys. I was actually spoke to him on the phone the other day. Dude, that guy is even more erudite and learned in person than he comes across on his videos, which is saying something, because he has, I think he does brilliant job on his videos. But we were just talking. He was just rattling off just study after study after study after study. It was so interesting. It was just just getting his crash course and just everything we were talking about. It was really really interesting. And he's a very very cool guy, very passionate about this and helping people and getting people healthy. And so that's great. So I'm definitely looking forward to talking to him as well. And he was very impressed with that guy. He only works 4 days a week, so because he wants to take one day a week where he just reads studies. He just spends a whole day. I want a day that I can just read studies, and that's what he does basically as a job. I'm just reading studies, reading studies, reading studies, and that is a great approach. I'm actually sort of thinking about doing a similar thing where I might take like some time off from neurosurgery next year, uh, just to be able to finish the book I'm writing and to work on other projects and do research and also just read again and be able to like read studies and read different papers and research, because I like doing that. I really am interested in that. And I just don't really have the time anymore. And so I was going to take a bit of time off to sort of just focus on that for a bit, and also still work and still do sort of like private surgeries um, and also work in the do the functional medicine preventative health sort of thing that I do on the weekends now. And so maybe just sort of work like 3 days a week, and the rest of the days I just focus on just reading, writing, and my own research. And that'll be interesting. That'll be interesting to see how that goes. I think it will be enjoyable. But yeah, so Paul Mason, definitely looking forward to that interview as well. I knew there was others. Sorry, it's early. I haven't slept much. Okay, so there's another general question. And when people say you're on an Atkins diet, what is the best response? As there are a lot of negative perceptions of it, and how does carnivore compare to Atkins? I don't know why there's negative connotations with Atkins. I mean, the dude was right. Like you really shouldn't be eating carbohydrates. You should be focusing on animal, protein, fat, and just animal nutrition. So I don't, any negative connotations or perceptions that people have are very undeserved for that. But it's not Atkins. Atkins gets close to the mark, but he's not quite there. What Atkins did is he eliminated out a lot of the different poisons and recognized that, hey, animal protein and fat are good for you. So that's really all that was, and it was just one of the it was just an elimination diet where you're just eliminating out carbs and other toxic plants to get good results, and people did get good results. They got fantastic results, and it's just so it's in the same sort of idea of an elimination diet of an animal protein and fat based animal diet, um, eliminating out other things. But so carnivores are just really the ultimate elimination diet where you're eliminating everything that's not species specific and optimal for human beings. And so that's the difference. But I would just sort of push back on this. Oh, well, this is Atkins and Atkins bad. I was like, it really isn't. And then you ask them, it's like, okay, why? Why is it bad? Oh, well, people get heart attacks. No, they don't. Actually, that's against the literature. Oh, well, Atkins, died of a heart attack. First of all, who gives? Who cares? About that or not. Just because he came up with the diet doesn't mean he actually practiced it, first of all. Second of all, you don't know that if he had any other sort of medical conditions. You don't know if he smoked or drank or had some sort of congenital abnormality. Like we just don't know. And so I don't really put too much stock in that. If I'm doing this and I get hit by a bus tomorrow, I'll be like, oh, well, that Dr. Chafee was full of it. He died at 42. It's like, yeah, not of anything related to my health. It's like there's things can happen in life that are outside of diet. And also, again, Dr. Atkins came up with the Atkins diet. Did he practice it? Was he strict on it? You know, I don't know. I never asked him, but that's something to consider. So, and just because, one person had, that's the thing. You have, millions of people doing Atkins around the world. One guy has a heart attack, and you don't even know if he was doing Atkins, and then that's just you just throw everything out. Doesn't make any sense. So people are going to have problems. They're going to have problems for different reasons, and and so it could be that you build up all this plaque and artery gunk for a while, and then you go carnivore, and then but things are already unstable and already problematic, and then there's a problem. I was talking to someone yesterday, and their dad went carnivore, and then all of a sudden had some internal bleeding, and was on blood thinners, and sort of went to the hospital. And they, oh, well, was this because of the carnivore? I mean, things that are can be coincidences as well. And like certainly carnivore is not going to cause any internal bleeding. But when you start something new and you're a little bit worried about it, and then something happens, I knew it. I knew this was bad for me. It's very easy to look at that, with confirmation bias. Um, but no, I don't think there's anything wrong with Atkins, except that maybe it didn't go far enough. But I think that it was definitely a large step in the right direction. So I would sort of push back against that if people sort of said that, oh, it's Atkins and Atkins bad. Um, Something about raw meat. Was this addressed? This is from Dr. Chafee's Discord. Curious what Dr. Chafee's opinion is on eating raw meat. If you're in the Western world, it's probably not that big a deal. If you're hunting and you're getting something from the wild, probably going to have parasites. Probably don't want to do that. But we are actually designed to eat raw meat. We're actually that's actually okay. But I think we've been cooking meat for a very long time. We have very strong evidence that we've been cooking meat for at least 1 million years, and there's supportive evidence. That we have been eating it for like 2 million years, or sorry, had fire for like 2 million years, and we're probably cooking for that. I think it's probably gave an advantage, probably from that standpoint, is getting rid of parasites, and so that could be why we've come to cook meat and enjoy cooked meat, and same with wolves and now dogs. Could be from a parasite perspective. That would be my suspicion, that would at least lend a evolutionary advantage, or just survival advantage. It doesn't even have to be evolutionary, but just a survival advantage to cook meat and get rid of those parasites that way. But in the Western world, there aren't any parasites. Even like trichinosis, like the last recorded case of like trichinosis in pig farmed pigs in America, it's over 20 years ago. I think it's probably more than 25 years now, because I heard that several years ago. So I wouldn't be too worried about that. Yeah, well, and Carnivore Veteran says he eats raw meat while hunting, and many of us do. Yeah, that's what I said. It's like that's the only thing that I think you would contend with, is that they might have some parasites in it. But at the same time, we have an entire immune system dedicated to dealing with parasites, and that's actually a thought that that people have, is that is actually our lack of exposure to parasites is actually what's giving us these crippling allergies, because it's the same part of the immune system that would normally attack parasites that gives us these weird allergies. And people that actually do have like the really strong cases of allergies and actually crippling allergies, they find that if they just introduce, like give themselves like roundworms, gone. Allergies are just gone. And so there are several case studies looking at that, where people would go and just like go into the third world and just expose themselves to as many parasites as possible, and then they get something and bang, their allergies are gone. And these are people that are really desperate. They're just on every medication. They've got all the injections and shots and all these sorts of things, and they just feel wretched all the time. And so that's definitely worth it to them. So that's something to think about as well. It could actually be an advantage to eat raw meat sometimes and get exposed to these parasites, obviously without getting like a full parasitic infection, because that's not good. But if your body's able to fight this stuff off and you're getting some exposure, but not to the point that you're getting diseased from it, that might be confer a health benefit as well. But if you're just worried about it, eating raw meat, especially like Western farmed meat, I honestly don't think that there's really any concern with that. People say, "Oh, there's this bacteria and you'll die," and it's just like, no, not really. If you let it spoil, sure, but there's actually a lot of people that do that. They do that, the high meat thing. I've never done that. I'm not suggesting anyone tries that, but they literally let it spoil and rot, and which can't smell good in your house, and then they eat that and they feel that actually that makes them feel the best. Um, I think I'm feeling good enough. I don't need to go down that route. It's nice to know that if we're had some zombie apocalypse and I have to eat some rotten meat, that I'm not gonna that it might be okay, and I might even feel better. But I don't think I need to go down that route just yet. But if you're just thinking about, is it safe to eat raw meat? Absolutely. I don't think there's any problem with that, as long as you're careful and it's not contaminated. The USDA process is very stringent. Not everybody knows this, but like I've been to some of these places long before I did carnivore, just for other reasons. And I've spoken to these guys. I've spoken to some USDA guys, and maybe they've changed these things, but at the time it was explained to me thusly: they have a 24-hour processing cycle, and that's broken into 3 8-hour segments. 6 hours is just processing the meat, and then every 6 hours they have to shut down and just clean. They do a deep clean. They get pressure washers and bleach, and they just clean every surface and really, really, really do a thorough job cleaning everything out. And then the USDA guy comes in and starts checking things and taking random samples from place. They find any contamination, any bacteria anywhere, they have to start the whole 2-hour process over again. And so it's in their best interest to do a good job, and they check it every time. And they also take samples from the meat. So it's like taking a couple packs of meat from each cycle, each 6-hour cycle, and then they send those off to the lab and they do cultures. And if they find that they've had any contamination, they pull the whole thing back. They do a recall, and you hear about this every now and then, but you don't hear about it often. And every now it makes the news. Oh my gosh, recalling me! All this meat. Like yeah. And when was the last time you heard about that? 9 years ago. So it's very rare, and there are safety measures and checks in place. So if you get a contaminated batch, it gets pulled. So if you're going to eat raw meat, I mean, I basically eat raw meat. I just sear it. The outside, the inside's raw. A rare steak, that's what raw meat tastes like, aka good. So it's and yeah, and as Elle said, like raw seafood. I mean, think about sashimi, and that's a thing with parasites. So they prepare sashimi in a certain way, especially like salmon can have a lot of parasites, and so they prepare in a certain way to sort of disable those things. And then jerky, biltong, all these things are raw. They're just dried. So I wouldn't be too worried about that. As long as it's not contaminated, you're fine. And it's very unlikely, if you buy something from a store in a Western country, that it's going to come contaminated. It might become contaminated by your practices and how you're treating it. You don't wash your hands. I mean, when 98, something like 98.5% of food poisoning cases in America are actually come from plants and like vegetables and things like that, contaminated vegetables. It's very hard to clean lettuce. There's always like nooks and crannies in there. So if you have E. coli on your hands and you have all these farm workers that don't wash their hands regularly and they just actually, go to the bathroom in the middle of the field because they're 6 miles away from the nearest bathroom. They just have to just go and they have to keep picking, which is not a nice thought. You're never getting that off of that lettuce, and so these things can get contaminated, and that can cause, and that's what causes the vast majority of food poisoning cases in America and probably elsewhere. But I just know about the statistics for America. Um, and the ones that come from meat aren't from the meat itself, like this got out of the plant and was contaminated. Those are from food handling problems. Like there was a restaurant worker that didn't wash their hands, and so they contaminated that. So it's not the meat that was the problem. It was the not washing their hands and after they went to the bathroom, which is gross. So that's what I would say about that is it's very unlikely to come contaminated. And if you don't contaminate it, fine. I wouldn't worry too much about that. Okay. So it's just 9 o'clock, guys. I might have to get going here in a second. Um, but so there's a couple personal questions. I might maybe do these ones sort of a bit quicker. So which sports teams do I support aside from the Seattle Seawolves? Obviously, those are my boys, so I support them the most. Other ones would be the Seahawks. I really love the Seahawks. I've liked them since I was a kid, and I was very very hurt when we lost against the Patriots, or sorry, the Pittsburgh Steelers in the Super Bowl. I thought that was robbed. I absolutely robbed from that Super Bowl win. I think that was at Super Bowl 40 or something like that. And I was watching the ESPN thing of like the 10 most controversial calls in NFL history, right? Three of them were from that game, all against the Seahawks. And it was just like, you have got to be kidding me. And we still barely lost. So that still bothers me. But yeah, Seahawks definitely support the Seahawks, and then the U.S. any USA team playing anywhere, in the Olympics or national circuit, international circuit, or something like that. Obviously, the U.S. Eagles, U.S. national team for rugby. And then obviously, I was in Ireland for many years. I was in England for many years, so I would support those teams as well, unless they're playing America. Obviously, they're going to win anyway. They don't need my support in that regard. But yeah, that's who I would support mostly. And then top three bands or artists to listen to. I have a very eclectic sort of taste in music. My mom was a classical singer, so she was like a professional. She was a classical soprano, and so she would sing like operas and that sort of music. And yeah, absolutely just stunning voice. I love hearing my mom sing, and still do. She doesn't do it really as often anymore because she's shy. But that was one of my favorite things as a kid was listening to my mom sing, and so I really love classical music because of her, and some like blues sorts of things. Really like those. And then I listened to a lot of rap growing up. So it's I think probably the first album I had when I was a kid was like Two Live Crew, which is like, if people know that, it's like the most crude and crass and dirty rap out there. But I just thought, you're a kid and you just think swearing is funny, and so that was sort of that was what I listened to as a kid growing up. So I still like that kind of music, but um, I absolutely love Mozart. I think Mozart's Fifth Piano Concerto is probably one of the most amazing things I've ever heard, especially like the third movement. I just I heard that and I just like something woke up in me. It was like the first time I'd actually heard music properly, and it was like I just heard music for the first time. Like really, I was like, what is this? I just thought it was absolutely amazing, and and so absolutely loved that. Then Beethoven's violin concerto in D, that is absolutely brilliant. And he only did one. He only did one violin concerto, but it was fantastic. And 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 again, the third movement on that. I really like the allegros. I like the sort of the faster paced, big, the final finale crash finish. Really like that. And then Bach is obviously just, the man, and that's the thing with Bach is the guy's perfect. It has to be perfect. And his Brandenburg concertos, I just absolutely love those. Those are some of my favorite pieces of music. And his cello solos, specifically played by Janos Starker. Oh my God! Like if you haven't heard that guy play the cello or his Bach solos. Like you just haven't heard these things played properly. Anytime I hear someone else play these things, I'm like, you're doing it wrong. That's wrong. No, that's wrong. And it's the same thing I hear with the Mozart piano concertos. If it's not Murray Pariah playing them, it's like, no, yeah, no, doing it wrong. No, 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 no. And so yeah, so that's what I think. And then yeah, and the Brandenburg concertos. Um, who is that? It's like is it Carl Richter and the Munich Bach sort of orchestra. They just do a bunch of Bach, and this was the album that they did of the Brandenburg concertos. This is what they sent in like the Discovery shuttle, like to contact other life forms that rest in the universe. It was like, and that was their version of the Brandenburg concertos that they send off. It was like just the best version ever, and it's brilliant. It's brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. I forget the movie. I think it's like the seventh piece in that, with the trumpet solos. Amazing. I was absolutely loved that trumpet. Who was it? Firing Line with William Buckley Jr. He had that trumpet piece from the Brandenburg concertos as the beginning for Firing Line. Is it Firing Line? I think it's Firing Line. Back in like the 80s and 90s. And it starts with that trumpet going through. I just love that piece. That's really my favorite piece. And other than that, like Too Short and DJ Quick. So so the other people I listen to, but no, those are my favorite ones. Would be those pieces from those artists. Great. All right. Well, all right, guys. Well, I think I have to call it there. I think that's pretty much all the questions. Carnivore was saying I should get recordings of her singing. I really wish I had them. I would absolutely love to have recordings of my mom singing. I might be able to get her to do it. I think she might be just too embarrassed and shy. She's a very shy little lady, but very, very sweet. And so, we'll see. But I don't think I have any recordings of her when I was a kid or younger. I would absolutely love it. I mean, this was before YouTube and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know if there are any recordings out there, but if there are, that's definitely worth getting. Great. All right. Well, yeah, either classical or swearing. That's basically my life is that. So, yeah, unfortunately, but okay, guys, thank you very much for coming on. I hope that was interesting for people, and we'll put this up on YouTube as well, so that people can take a look at it, and the people that ask their questions, they can see the answers to that, and hopefully it helps them too. And if anyone isn't on the Discord channel, that's something that's very good to get on, and people can ask more questions and talk about things, and also submit questions for future live events like this as well. And anyone who is watching this subsequently and hasn't signed up, if you would like to be a part of these live events, you can go on and join my Patreon. It's just Anthony Chafee MD, and but I like to do live events. I like to do other things anyway. So please don't feel that you need to sign up for my Patreon to get, access to my things. It's just something that helps me, and it helps me sort of, be able to dedicate more time to these sorts of things, because time is pretty dear right now. And so that does help. And if people can, sign up for my YouTube, just Anthony Chafee MD, and Instagram, and follow on the social media, and help and actually just share a lot of the videos. I think that's probably the most helpful thing that people can do is if you like a video and you think it's helpful and someone else will find it helpful, please do share it with them because it makes all the difference in the world when people start sharing things around, people start, watching more, that helps the algorithms from YouTube just say like, oh, hey, this is interesting. People like this. We'll introduce this to other people as well, and maybe they'll find it interesting also. So that's really helpful for people or for me to get this stuff out there. And so if people would be able to do that, that would be great too. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Really appreciate it. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.